So we look back at last season. At this stage, Liverpool had 28 points, a 5-point lead. Why do you think they haven't maintained that this season?
I think there's definitely more than one reason. I think there's a few. That's been spoken about quite a lot. I think if you start at the top end of the pitch and look at what Mo Salah did last season, was one of the greatest seasons we've ever seen from an individual player in the Premier League. He was never going to have a season like that again. And I think that's one of the reasons why Liverpool loaded up at the top end of the pitch as well, maybe to spread that load. I think in terms of Liverpool bringing players in, the number of players they brought in, now I felt last season they needed to bring 7 players in. And the reason being, even though they were the champions, there was probably 5 or 6 players in the squad, not so much in the team, but in the squad, who the manager didn't really trust. And he moved those players on and he's replaced them. But when he's replaced those players, a lot of those players become first choice players, not the backup players to the players they replaced. So I think what's happened is a lot of new players have come in at once. They haven't all hit the ground running. And then it's sort of been that sort of, familiarity between the players hasn't quite been there, that consistency as well. And I think with hindsight, looking back, I think the manager might think he maybe not bought too many players, but maybe blooded too many players together at the same time at the start of the season.
I'll come back to the transfer business in just a moment, but I wanted to talk about that chat that you had with Slot, the Friday night football Bournemouth game. You also spoke about this kind of basketball style of play. Have you seen changes since that game?
Yeah, I think there has been changes, and I think on the back of Liverpool going back to a little bit more like the team of last season in terms of personnel. There was a lot more control last season. The big thing for me that stood out, what Slot brought to Liverpool and added onto what Jurgen had the season before, was that bit more control. And I think that was why Liverpool won the league last season, because they were the best attacking team in the league on the back of Mo Salah's season, but also defensively. For the first 3 quarters of the season, they were as good as Arsenal defensively, and then they tailed off a little bit when the league was won. But this season, defensively, it hasn't been right, and that was something that worried me a little bit before the league started. The Community Shield against Crystal Palace, there was a game against AC Milan in pre-season, and it didn't feel like the Liverpool we'd seen last season. Now, I think a lot of that is to do with almost every player the manager's bought is an attacking player, and that's even including fullbacks. So I think that gives you a little snapshot of maybe the reasons why.
And obviously it is still early days in the season. Some people are writing their title hopes off already. Realistically, do you see it that way? Do you think their title hopes are over? And what do you think that gap would need to be come Christmas for them to be in this title race?
I don't think they're over. I think they're hanging by a thread. And the reason I say that is that I think Liverpool may still have a little bit more pain between now and January. Because, as I said, there's still new players getting used to each other, getting used to the Premier League as well. But I do think Liverpool will improve a lot in the second half of the season, because I do think the players they bought are top players. I don't look at the players they bought and I'm scratching my head thinking, why have they bought them? I do think they've brought quality in. It's just about getting the right sort of dynamics in the team and the right team to play with each other that suits each other's strengths. And I think if Liverpool could be in a situation where they were maybe 5 or 6 points behind, I think the leaders would be Arsenal, who look the best team in the league right now. I think second half of the season, Liverpool could put real pressure on that team, because they haven't won the Premier League before. Liverpool have, Manchester City have as well, and that'll be playing on Arsenal's minds second half of the season. So, yeah, I think they'll need to be, as I said, 5 or 6 points. If it starts getting closer to 10, I think that's too much, because Arsenal are a fantastic team.
And we know that Liverpool haven't retained the title since the 80s. Do you think maybe the expectations were too high this season, thinking, oh, we won it last year, we can do it again this year?
No, I don't think so. I think the idea and the reason why there's a little bit of disappointment and maybe pressure around Liverpool is because Liverpool won the league comfortably last season, and then they went and spent a lot of money on quality players. So I think the feeling probably around Liverpool and the supporters was, we've won the league, this could be an era of domination. Maybe you win the league 3 times in 5 years, something along those type of lines. And I think when it started so badly, that's where, sort of the shock is. Because Liverpool aren't a million miles away from the top of the league and will be there or thereabouts at the end of the season. But I do think there was a feeling amongst Liverpool supporters was, oh, this is time to put our foot on the pedal and really go and win another league title again and be the team to beat under Slot over the next 3 or 4 years. But I mean, I must just add in though, I think on the last title in 2020, I think the defence of the title, to be fair to Liverpool, they were absolutely decimated by injuries, all in the same position. I think the 4 centre-backs were all out with long-term injuries, so I mean, they were never going to win the league title, you know, that season on the back of that. But this season, to start with, has been a slight disappointment and they've got work to do.
What about expectations in terms of the Champions League? Because could you see Slot kind of turning his attention from retaining the Premier League title to winning the Champions League? That's where his focus goes.
Yes, I think Slot has a little obsession with the Champions League. He speaks about Paris Saint-Germain a lot last season on the back of losing them. He speaks so well of them. He almost admired losing to that team, and that the fact that they went on to win the tournament and the way they won it, the way they played in the final. I think he loves managers whose teams play that type of football. That's how he envisages his team playing at their absolute best. And that's why, on the back of last season, talking about Liverpool having control, he wanted more flair. You can see about the players that he's brought in. But when you spend that much money, you have to be one of the favourites for the Champions League. And I actually bumped into Arne Slot in the summer. When he was away, we were both on holiday, bumped into him. And he was there with his family. And I thanked him and his family for what he'd done for Liverpool last season in terms of winning the league. And he introduced me as a Champions League winner to his wife and his kids. And I'd almost feel like he was like, that's our next step. I could feel it the way he said it. You know, we've won the league, but we want to win the Champions League. It was that type of way of sort of saying. It just stuck with me in his head, thinking, oh, he desperately, you can feel he wants that. As listen, all top managers do. And when you're a manager of Liverpool, the club is synonymous with, you know, the Champions League. So we have to go close, you know. And I say we because, as I said, that competition and the club means so much to me. And yeah, Liverpool, for me, have to get to the semi-finals.
Let's talk a bit more about transfers then, because in the summer we saw them spending this huge amount of money, kind of British record spend, over £400 million. A lot of people were saying, you know, Liverpool have won the league before a ball had even been kicked because of their transfer business. How do you reflect on the window now and the business that they did?
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was a lot of money. I felt they did need to bring that number of players in. Because, you know, I can go through the team of last season, or the squad. So Simicast, the manager didn't really have confidence in him, so you needed to buy a left back. Kwanzaa moved on. Jarell Kwanzaa, young player, the manager didn't really have confidence in. They brought, you know, a young player in from Italy, but still needed another body. They had to replace Trent. Harvey Elliott moved on. Again, the manager didn't have much confidence in him, so he went and brought another number 10, if you like, in Wirtz. Nunes, you know, the manager never had confidence in him, so he's gone and brought in, you know, Isak, and obviously we've got the tragic situation of Diogo Jota. So then another attacking player comes in. So they were replacing players the manager didn't have confidence in last season. But in terms of spending the big money on Isak and Ekitike, who were both playing the same position, both in the same summer, that was a little one where I was scratching my head a little bit. But I understand that they weren't quite sure they're going to get Ekitike, they weren't sure they're going to get Isak to the last minute, and they've ended up with both of them. How that works going forward, I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure you can get them both in the same team at the same time. And when you've spent that type of money and it just becomes one or the other, doesn't feel very Liverpool-like to me, or certainly the way we've conducted our transfer business in the last few years.
So how should it work going forward? Should it just be a straight fight for the number 9 position between those two players? Or, I mean, you've kind of alluded to it there, that you just don't think there's a way of getting them both in this side?
I think it's tough. I think it's tough to who does play with two strikers. You look at Manchester City with Erling Haaland. They had another striker, Alvarez, who was a World Cup winner. What is one of the best strikers in the world? It didn't work. They had to sell him to Atletico Madrid in the end. And now they've got Marmoush. He's on the bench. It's difficult the way the game is now with so many bodies in midfield to have players who play right up the top end of the pitch. Now there's talk about Ekitike, he could play to the left. I thought that might be an option. I hadn't seen him play for the left, but that many people were saying it. I thought, well, okay, maybe the manager will use that option. He hasn't really. And he's been fantastic through the middle. That's his position. So the more he plays well, the more it makes it difficult for Alexander Isak when he's back fully up to speed and fit and fine, because he'll want to play every game as well. So, yes, you need competition for places. Of course, you need a big squad. I get all that. But in a team, certain players need to know they're playing. Certain players need to know that the squad plays, and sometimes we have too many players who all think they should be playing. That's when it can cause a problem.
Could it have a detrimental effect on either of these players then, from a player's perspective, when you're put in that position of thinking you're going to be starting in this team, but then you're actually told, actually, we can't work out a way to get you in this side, and every week you feel like you should be playing? Could it have a detrimental effect on?
Yeah, it can, and it'll have to work itself out at some stage, where maybe one becomes first choice, or someone is happy, or they maybe rotate them. But sometimes I feel when you have certain players, and let's say Isak, for instance, who has cost a transfer record, is a fantastic player. Sometimes even when he's playing, it's not great having Ekitike on the bench, because Ekitike is that good a player. You have to bring him on to keep him happy. And Isak's playing a game thinking, if I don't play well in the first hour or score a goal in the first hour, I'm coming off. And that's at the back of his mind. So I'm just really interested to see how Liverpool manage that situation between the two of them going forward. I don't think it's a problem in the next few weeks, but over sort of the next 18 months, who actually becomes Liverpool's first choice striker, and does the other one accept being, a backup to the other one, or play when they're injured, and that type of situation. So, but that's what the manager gets paid a few quid for. Yeah.
But it's almost like he's created a bit of an unnecessary problem that they maybe didn't have to deal with, and it could cause Liverpool more harm than good. Do you see it like that?
Well, listen, you've got quality players, but I'm not sure you can say that, but it'll definitely give the manager food for thought. I think it's probably a little bit easier if you sign a striker for half the money of Isak, like to leave him on the bench, or he's not as big a name. We know that. And but yeah, listen, Liverpool, they get a lot of plaudits for how they go about things in the transfer market, and rightly so. The record's fantastic, so it'll be interesting how they navigate this one.
And compared to the rest of the Premier League, the players they brought in seemed to be this focus on kind of more small technical players. You saw Arsenal kind of recruiting big, strong, athletic players. Do you think Liverpool maybe did go about things the wrong way, and that they maybe should have focused on a different kind of player?
I think that's easy to say with hindsight, because it just feels like the league this season has become that type of league where everyone seems obsessed with set pieces and long throws. Arsenal have been fantastic, certainly at set pieces for a long time now, and it does feel like where Arne Slot is pushing the Liverpool team, the game is actually, certainly in the Premier League, is actually going the other way. And I do think that was one of the reasons why Liverpool have been caught out in these early weeks in the season, whether it's just a trend or it's here, for a few seasons. But I think we should never forget set pieces, physicality, strength has always been a big part of the Premier League, and you've always had to have an element of that in your squad. And I do think Liverpool are a little bit short in that area, and that's why I think they will find it tough to win the Premier League this season.
What about Florian Wirtz? Because obviously big money signing. Do you see him as a player? Do you have confidence that he will prove his worth as a player that cost over £100 million?
I think he's a quality player. I think it's difficult to have 100% confidence. I hear some people come out and say, oh, 100% this will work. I've heard Jurgen Klopp's comments as well, but I think it's difficult to say that. He's never played in England before. He's found it tough to start with. But there's no doubt, when you look at the Real Madrid game, he was fantastic in that game. I just think the idea was for him to maybe play more centrally as part of that midfield three. I'm not quite sure that is right for him right now, especially in the Premier League, where there's always 6, 7, maybe 8 bodies in that area of the pitch every week. And I think maybe just playing to a wide area maybe suit him, maybe a little bit more space there as well, less hustle and bustle. And when you think of some of the players who Manchester City have had over the years, in terms of like a David Silva, Bernardo Silva, even like a Phil Foden, a lot of the time they play wide and then they come central. So I actually think, looking at the makeup of the team, in the last few weeks, and where Florian Wirtz has had his best games, they have been in wide positions, coming then centrally late. So I think that's the best place for him right now. And eventually, you know, the situation in terms of the number 10 position may become vacant, it may be there for him, and he may flourish, but now I think he's better off in those positions for now.
People make comparisons to previous players. Is he a bit like a new Philippe Coutinho? Do you see him a bit like that?
Yes, he's diminutive, like Philippe Coutinho, who was fantastic for Liverpool, and Philippe Coutinho was exactly what I've just mentioned before. At times he played centrally, at times he played wide, and yeah, as I said, he made a bit of a slow start to his Liverpool career, and then become arguably Liverpool's best player, hence why Barcelona pays so much money for him. But Liverpool, with that type of player, they haven't had that type of player too often, really, in the past. When you think of Liverpool winning the league under Jurgen Klopp, it was a very powerful team. But also, I should add, Philippe Coutinho didn't cost 120 or 115 million, whatever it is, so that price tag will weigh heavy as well.
And we speak about this huge amount of money that they spent. Do they need to spend again in January? And if so, where do they need to look in January in terms of more incomings? Yeah,
Liverpool need to spend in January. Yeah, they need to buy a centre-back. They should have bought a centre-back in the summer. They didn't, and then the one centre-back they did buy, Leone, a young Italian player, looked fantastic in the games that he played, a couple of Carabao Cup games. Unfortunately got an ACL injury, so we won't see him till next season. So, yeah, I mean, Liverpool are probably one injury away at centre-back from, I mean, really derailing the season, so they have to go to the market in January.
What about the manager's contract situation? Because I think it runs until 2027. Lots of people anticipated an extension when they won the title. Is that a situation they need to look at now and get sorted now, or worth waiting? You see no kind of hurry to get a contract extension in place?
I'm sure once they get the other side of Christmas, that'll be something they were looking at. I mean, the man won the league. You know, there was a lot of nonsense talk in the early weeks of the season that, you know, his job was on the line, he was under pressure, he had a really poor run, and especially when you're the manager of one of the biggest clubs in the world, fingers will be pointed, but he's really calm, collected under pressure. I actually admired the way he's handled the media and everything that's being thrown at him in those early weeks of the season. Never looked flustered, never looked under pressure, never changed. You know, he gets a lot of criticism for his opinions, like he's having a go at other teams. He's not. I think we've got to work out what this manager is. He's just very honest, and he'll tell you exactly what's happened in the game, good or bad. And people say when he says the opposition play long balls, oh, you can't say that. No, but that did happen in the game. He's telling you what happened in the game. And he did that very early on. I think his third game as a Liverpool manager was away at Old Trafford. And Liverpool went and won there. And he explained after the game what they did to try and win the game, and you come away thinking, oh, should he say that? Should he be so honest? But we're learning what this manager's like. So now Liverpool are in a poor run of form. Again, he's telling you why they're having problems and how the game is. He's Dutch, he's honest, he speaks tactically about the game, and I think it's refreshing.
You touched on Mo Salah at the start. How much is his form impacting this Liverpool team right now?
Well, it's impacting the Liverpool team, of course, but the Liverpool team have to realise and understand that Mo Salah can't be the Mo Salah of last season every week. That's just not going to happen. There was always going to be a drop-off. He's getting older, and eventually Liverpool will have to cope without Mo Salah, and that's going to come in the next few weeks with the African Cup of Nations. And I'm really interested to see what the manager does when Mo Salah's not there, and is that a real chance to really blood almost an idea of a new team around the new signings who've come in, because it is quite difficult right now to get all your money on the pitch because they all play in similar positions. So he may have a little plan for us, Arne Slot, when Mo Salah leaves.
And actually, we could be in a situation where if Liverpool find form while Mo Salah is away with this plan that Slot comes up with, where does that leave Mo Salah when he comes back? Could we be in a situation where Salah suddenly isn't the main man?
Yeah, it could do that. That's football. That's the nature of it. Whether it's through injury, you're missing to go play away for your country. If the team and the manager fall on something that works, a tactical, idea, a plan to get certain players in the team, he will go with it. And the reason you would go with it is just because the age. You've got to be thinking of the future as well. Mo Salah's the here and now, still the best goal scorer at the club. But when you've brought in Wirtz, Ekitike, Isak, you've got to try and make that work, and they're the ones who've got years in front of them and I go on and take this Liverpool team to, you know, greater heights in the future. So, yeah, that will come into it. But Mo Salah's still Liverpool's best team. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I've said before, though, I think in certain away games, it may be beneficial for the team if maybe he comes off the bench the last 20 minutes, so he doesn't have to start every game. And it'll be interesting where Liverpool are after the AFCON.
And what about Virgil van Dijk? Because another man whose form has come under the spotlight a little bit. We saw Wayne Rooney with some interesting comments about Van Dijk. Van Dijk obviously had a little nibble back. What have you made of Van Dijk's form?
I actually don't think Van Dijk has been in poor form, really, to be honest. I think it's very difficult when the team's not playing well for any player to be at the best. The team aren't set up, you know, great defensively in terms of what's been in front of them. At times, his partner's just had a really poor start to the season. That can't be easy. You're not just playing your own game, then you're trying to manage the guy next to you who needs real help, Canate. So I think Virgil van Dijk's put on a lot of great performances this season. The one that really stands out for me was away at Newcastle, the home game against Arsenal as well. So in the main, he's been one of Liverpool's best players, I think, alongside Szoboszlai this season. But no, when you've set the standards he has, he's the captain of the club, he's the figurehead, he comes out and speaks, you know, after every game as well. So, yeah, you have to take a little bit of stick now and again, especially off Wayne Rooney. So
overall, earlier you said you think the title defence chances are quite slim. What is the expectation then for this season in terms of Premier League, where they're going to finish, and the Champions League?
Well, I think Liverpool will improve in the second half of the season. They have to. And I think they will push whoever goes on to win the title, which I think will be Arsenal, really close. But they have to have a real push for the Champions League. They have to. And the fact that Liverpool have gone out the Carabao Cup early now, they have to have a really good run in the FA Cup. It's not a competition notoriously we do well in, or we've had a great record in over the years. We've always done a lot better in the other competition. But I think we're going out of the Carabao Cup early. Liverpool have to have a really good run and strong run and look to win one of the cup competitions. Fingers crossed that's the Champions League. But yeah, I think with Liverpool's history in the Champions League, the team will get better second half of the season. Liverpool have got to have a strong shout for that.